Welcome to Comic Power. I am your host, Comic Killer 72. Welcome to the segment called Top List. This is the segment where I give you the best of a particular category. Today I'm going to announce the top 10 comics of 2017. I've been hyping this up for a while, so now it's time to deliver. This is going to be about individual comics that I think were the best of 2017. These are books that were released between December 15th, 2016 and December 15th, 2017. This has nothing to do about how cool the cover looked. It has nothing to do about investment. It's about what I think were the best reads this year. This is my third annual report, so let me do a quick recap of what were the best comics of the previous years. For 2015, I thought it was Divinity #1 from Valiant Comics. It's a story of a black Russian cosmonaut that gets sent into outer space in 1960 and he returns to Earth with the powers of a god. It was a big breakout hit for Valiant Comics and it went to 5 printings. If you're a fan of Cosmic Kirby, then this is right up your alley. For 2016, my favorite comic was The Fix #1 from Image Comics. It's a black comedy that's based in deep sarcasm about 2 bumbling, corrupt cops in Los Angeles. It's also an indictment on sleazy Hollywood excess. I'll have a link in the description about the full list for 2015 and 2016 if you want to go back and watch those. Okay, I've been babbling for about 90 seconds now, so let's go ahead and get into the top 10 comics of 2017. Number 10. And that's Nightwing, The New Order, #1 from DC Comics. This was the former pick of the week on August 23rd, 2017. And it takes on one of my favorite genres, dystopian. In this dystopian future, superpowers have been outlawed and are illegal. Nightwing leads a task force called the Crusaders that hits the street and enforces the law, sort of like Judge Dredd or something. But he discovers some new information that makes him question what his role is in this new society. The first thing that grabbed me about this miniseries is the covers. They kind of look like Soviet-era propaganda posters. It fits the tone of the book about how it would feel to be like under the rule of the USSR in the mid-20th century, at best, or the Judge Dredd universe at the worst. If you missed this miniseries, then you missed a great read. Go back and read the trade paperback. This is one of the best stories of Nightwing with him as a lead character ever written. Number 9. Medicine #1 from Action Lab Comics, and it has one of the most intriguing premises I think I've ever saw in comics. It's a story of down-on-their-luck doctors who are blackmailed to be physicians for supervillains. And if they neglect their duty or try to tap out, then they die. I do want to tell you that this probably has some of the worst art of any of the books in the top 10, but let me explain why. This book started out as a Kickstarter. A group of no-names literally raised their own funds and published this book. They didn't have the luxury of having someone in the industry as good or talented as Frank Cho to draw their stuff. Just imagine Medicine being drawn by him. Look at the type of skill he has. But even though the art is lacking, this is some of the best writing I've ever seen in comics ever. If the art would have been better, it would have been much higher on this list. The writing is credited to Jeff Dyer, and if Marvel or DC are smart, they should be picking this guy up. Think of this as the Suicide Squad, but with doctors. Instead of supervillains being forced to work against their will, it's doctors working on supervillains that are being used to work against their will. Jeff Dyer must have been a medical student because he uses medical terminology so well throughout this book. Number 8. Weapon X #1 from Marvel Comics, and it was the pick of the week for April the 12th, 2017. This is a story expertly written by Greg Pak and drawn tremendously by Greg Land. This is a story about Weapon Plus, the organization that gave the enhancements to Wolverine, Sabretooth, and others. They want to either reclaim these assets or kill them. I use the phrase Old Man Logan and Wolverine interchangeably. We're introduced to Wolverine first, and he's out doing this thing. And he gets ambushed by some new Weapon Plus prototypes, and for some reason they did not tip off his sense of smell. He barely survives the encounter, and he persuades Sabretooth and Domino and some others to join him, even though they're not on good terms, but they're all in danger, so they have a common enemy. That sounds incredible, right? But of course, there's controversy. Marvel decided to cross this over into other books, which gave us Totally Awesome Hulk #22, where they introduced Weapon H, aka Hulkverine. Marvel has been throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. In this case, it's a Hulk-Wolverine mashup. I understand the history of these characters, with Wolverine making his first appearance in 1974 and Hulk 181, and the value for this in the secondary market has went through the roof, but I wasn't a fan, but I won't judge you if you are. With Disney buying out Fox Studios, it gives us the possibility that this Hulk and Wolverine battle could happen in live action, which would make us all nerd out. But I wasn't happy to see Weapon H show up. I think that the Weapon X story should have been a mutant story and not bring the Hulk into this. But like I said, said before, that's just me. You can do whatever you want. This title is up to issue number 12 now. They've moved on from the Hulk Marine thing, and I think that's a good thing. Number 7. Secret Weapons number 1 from Viet Comics. It was the pick of the week for June the 28th of 2017. This was issue number 1 of a 4-part miniseries starring Livewire, an African-American female hero who can control machines. She's a technopath. She's got a power set that looks like Storm meets Magneto. Here's a quick review of the Valiant universe. In the Valiant universe, people born with special abilities and superpowers are called psiots. It's like their version of mutants. And of course, Livewire is one. It's her mission in this miniseries to rescue some other psiots with some oddball powers that can't be weaponized. And they're being hunted down by an evil organization, and only Livewire can save them. Think of this as a story where Storm may have to save Generation X or something like that. One of the oddballs is a girl who can only talk to birds. Another oddball is a guy called the Conjurer. He can summon anything out of thin air, but he has no control over what it might be. He'll ask for a gun and he might get a mop. This miniseries was written by Eric Hassier, who is a newcomer to comics, but he's not new to writing. He wrote the Oscar-winning screenplay for the 2016 movie Arrival. His connection to Valiant is that he's also the screenplay writer for the first draft of the Harbinger live-action movie coming out in the future. He fell in love with the Livewire character who will appear in Harbinger and asked Valiant if he could write a story about her, and they agreed, and this is what we got, and the results are outstanding. Be sure to go back and watch my June 28th, 2017 video. Links in the description. It'll give you more details about the plot on this and a better understanding of the Valiant universe, which I don't have time to explain right now. Number 6. Redneck number 1 from Image Comics, and it was the pick of the week for April 19th, 2017. It's the story of the Bowmans, a cattle-raising East Texas family that secretly are vampires. It's written by Donnie Cates, who's one of the biggest breakout stars of this year, and he's from Texas, so he knows how to write these characters correct. After a scuffle at a bar, their secret gets revealed and all hell literally breaks loose. Being that it's a Southern vampire story, a lot of people may think it's True Blood, and it obviously is probably influenced by it, but a little bit. But it's not a ripoff. It's got its own feel to it. I'm not a big fan of the art style on this either. It's better than Medicine, but not as good as I'd like it to be. But once again, this is one of those times where the story is so awesome that it makes you look past any reservations you have about the artwork. This book is incredibly clever. For example, the vampire family's thirst for blood is satisfied by drinking a mix of paint thinner and cow's blood, and they call it Bloodwiser. Everything about this title feels like a live action TV series just waiting to happen, and hopefully that'll become true one day. Number 5. Realm number 1 from Image Comics, and this was the runner-up pick of the week for September 13th, 2017. This book seemed to come out of nowhere and hit hard like a ton of bricks, and it delivers post-apocalyptic sci-fi action that you've seen before but never get tired of, like last year when Image gave us 7 to Eternity, which was excellent, by the way. Basically, monsters and other dragons have overrun the world. And this book happens 15 years after the event, and humans have to learn to survive. Shown here is a Tony Moore cover B variant. Tony is famous for being the original artist on The Walking Dead. Cover A and interior are done by Jeremy Hahn, and he's a special artist. He has attention to detail and backgrounds that most people don't do, and the way he frames the story is very cinematic. If you're already reading stuff like Saga, The Walking Dead, 7 to Eternity, then you should make room for Realm as well. It's got some really good stuff going on. The art and the writing is exactly what you want. At the time I made this video, we're only about 3 issues into Realm. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a superior title that's definitely worth your time, and issue number 1 is going up in value due to demand and a very low print run. Number 4. Bloodshot Salvation number 1 from Viet Comics, and this was the pick of the week for September 20th, 2017. And this is a sci-fi thriller that has the pulse-pounding action that Wolverine used to deliver in the 80s and the 90s. This is written by Jeff Lemire, who I ranked as number 4 on my top 10 writers in comics right now, and he is crushing this. Salvation takes place about 8 years after Bloodshot Reborn, and as you can see, he has a daughter, and she's inherited her father's powers, and of course the bad guys are going to try to come and get her. So think Logan live action movie. The plot is very similar to that, but not a carbon copy. And this isn't one of those books where the covers look good and the interior is inferior. Actually, the interiors may look better than the covers. It's really that good looking. As you already know, Valiant is working on some live action movies. Harbinger will be first, but Bloodshot's gonna get his own movie as well. There's some similarities to Wolverine in that he's a enhanced super soldier that goes rogue, but his power set is closer to RoboCop meets the Terminator, and he leaves more bodies laying around than the Punisher. Issue number 1 also introduces a new villain called Rampage. speed. And this guy is more unkillable than Freddy and Jason combined. Going forward in 2018, I probably will have to do some Valiant explain videos. You've probably seen some of the books and didn't know where to start, but you can start with Bloodshot Salvation. You don't have to know a whole bunch of backstory to get it, and it's a lot of fun. It's very exciting. Number 3. Shirtless Bear Fighter, number 1, and this was the pick of the week for June 21st. And first of all, this is the most hilarious thing I've read this year. It was knee-slapping funny. It's clearly a spoof of ultra-masculine comic book characters like Wolverine, and the premise reads like this. Man is raised by bears. Man is betrayed by bears. Man seeks out revenge on those bears, sometimes even fighting them naked. This is probably the funniest Wolverine spoof I've ever saw. Just put claws on him, he's gonna look just like Logan. Sometimes comics takes themselves too seriously, so I like to see a refresher like this. It even makes fun of those cliches where the hero and the villain have to reluctantly team up against a common enemy. And that happens in issue 4 where they take on the Logger and his lumberjacks. If you missed out on this 5-issue miniseries, be sure to pick up the trade paperback and get ready to laugh your ass off. Number 2. Batman number 25 from DC Comics. This was the runner-up pick of the week for June 21st. The pick of the week was actually Shirtless Bear Fighter. That's 2 heavy hitters coming out in the same week, isn't it? What's going on here is part 1 of the War of Jokes and Riddles, where the Joker and the Riddler start a war against each other for control of the criminal underworld. First thing, I'm glad that the Riddler doesn't look like he used to in the 1990s when he was played by Jim Carrey in that awful movie. He now looks like an Irish gangster hooligan. And bravo to DC for updating the character. Everything on Batman has been brilliant this whole year. It's written by Tom King, who's on my list of one of the top 20 writers in comics right now. The War of Jokes and Riddles almost feels like a villain version of Marvel's Civil War. Instead of heroes splintering and taking sides, it's villains splintering and taking sides. You're either Team Joker or you're Team Riddler. And of course, Batman is caught in the middle of all this. The writing's incredible. The art is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Hey, it's Batman, and it's Batman at his best. So you want to absolutely, positively get this trade paperback if you missed out on this storyline. So how are you liking the list so far? Before we get into number 1, we're going to go over the honorable mentions. Music, please. Mr. Miracle number 1 from DC Comics. He was created by Jack Kirby in 1971. It's currently written by Tom King, who's also writing Batman. Heathen number 1 from Viet Comics. It's a story of a female Viking warrior named Adis who's seeking revenge on the god king Odin. Solar Flare number 1 from Scout Comics. This is about the not so distant future where a solar flare literally wipes out all the world's telecommunications and electricity, and it sends us back to the Stone Age. Doomsday Clock number 1 from DC Comics. After over 18 months of teasers, DC gives us that crossover between their main superheroes and Dr. Manhattan's Watchmen universe. Extremity number 1 from Image Comics. It's a story of a female artist who gets her hand chopped off, but despite this handicap, she takes up arms and becomes the most feared warrior of her tribe. Batman White Knight number 1 from DC Comics. In this alternative universe, the Joker is cured of his insanity, makes peace with Harley Quinn, and becomes a hero to the city of Gotham fighting against Batman, who people believe has gone too far. Exo Man of War number 1 from Valiant Comics. The warrior king Eric is seeking peace on a foreign planet and wants to leave his violent past behind, but he must summon the armor one more time when war breaks out. The Walking Dead issue 171 from Image Comics. This is the first appearance of a new character called the Princess. After 14 years, The Walking Dead is still introducing such cool characters. Black Bolt number 1 from Marvel Comics. This is a hugely underrated title. In this continuity, Black Bolt must escape from space prison, and they bring in some obscure characters like the Absorbing Man you haven't seen in a while. And just missing the cut is Victor LaValle's Destroyer number 1 from Boom Studios. It's a story of a female scientist who's the last descendant of the Frankenstein family, and her son is killed in a police shooting, and she uses technology to bring him back. At the same time, the Frankenstein monster that's been out there for 150 years is returning to civilization. It was a super cool 6-part miniseries. Make sure you pick up the trade paperback. Okay, that's it for the honorable mentions. Now let's get into number 1. And that's going to be God Country number 1 from Image Comics. It was the runner-up pick of the week for January the 11th, 2017. This book seems like it came out of nowhere and dominated this year. It was created and written by Donny Cates. There's that name again. He's the only author that has 2 books in the top 10. His Redneck title is number 6 on my list. God Country is the story of Emmett Quillen. He's a man from West Texas that suffers from Alzheimer's. His son tries to move his family in to help take care of his dad, but his violent outbursts is breaking up the family. One day, a tornado hits West Texas and levels his house. His son's family returns to the property to see if he's okay, but expecting the worst. But what they witness is that the old man has a huge enchanted sword in his faculties back. And he uses that sword to kill a demon who's trying to attack his granddaughter. And the whole family is like, wow, Grandpa is back and he's an action hero and he makes sense. The only drawback is that this sword belongs to a literal god and he wants his sword back. All of this played out over a outstanding 6-part miniseries. It's one of the best pieces of fiction I've read in a very long time. It didn't seem like a comic book. The Emmett Quinlan story, of course, is based on Excalibur. You know, that archetypal tale about a chosen one who's the only person that can lift a weapon of intense power. Think about it though, Thor is based on that archetype as well. But instead of a sword, it's a hammer. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Thor was introduced in Journey into Mystery number 83 in 1962, where Dr. Donald Blake turns into Thor for the first time. And you know the famous line about whoever possesses this hammer, if they are worthy, they shall possess the power of Thor. But back to God Country, this was absolutely riveting. And the only thing I hated about this is that it had to end. I have no idea if Donny Cates is interested in continuing the series in the volume 2 or volume 3. But that's what Valiant did when they found out that Divinity was a hit. And just like with Redneck, this has the look and feel of everything you want to see from a live action television series or a movie. The pacing, the setting, the characterization, it's all there. If this gets optioned and turned into something live action, whoever adapts it will have a very easy job. All you have to do is follow the script from the comic. Okay, that's about it for today, folks. That's my top 10 list plus honorable mentions. So I gave you 20 books to look at. Do you agree with my list? If not, please go to the comment section and post your own top 10. I'm curious to see what others thought were the best comics of this year. And as always, be sure that you subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, and share these videos on social media so others can learn about the channel and help it grow. The content's gonna be even better in 2018. Until next time, this is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power saying bye-bye.